Okay, everybody, so real quick, before we get started with the new stuff, I want to do a quick refresher on the old stuff in case any of you guys or girls, any of you guys or girls, have not been around the CCNA stuff recently. Okay, and this is going to be some basics, and chances are you can knock most of this out in your sleep. If so, great, good for you. But this is for just kind of a refresher of things. Just to make sure we're all on the same page going forward. If you have trouble with any of these refresher labs that we're going to do in the beginning, you should refresh a little bit on the CCNA stuff. Use whatever study material you had. If it was our course, great. If it was something else, great. But you should know this, okay? And so if you don't, this is also going to help you get into what we're doing now. So to start off, we're going to start with the basics. I have my GNS3 lab open. I introduced GNS3 in our CCNA 1 videos as a special bonus video. It's a free product. You're able to install it for free. You just need to have a Cisco iOS software, one of the older versions. Anyway, there's a whole video on that. You can go check that out. But it's a free application, so you can emulate what I'm doing here. But I'm gonna demonstrate these things so you can see how they're done and get refreshed before we dive into icnd Part 2. If you feel comfortable with these things, with these labs, before icnd 2 that we're going to do, go ahead and jump into the subjects after the icnd 1 review labs. So it should be plainly marked in your in the learning system, right? So, but let's go ahead and start off with the basic one. So the first thing in this one is we're going to configure the diagram as shown, enable the interfaces, ensure full connectivity exists, and do not use routing protocols. So whenever I see this, basically we need to make sure we have full connectivity between 3 segments. We've got 3 routers, okay? And it says do not use routing protocols. So what are we going to use there? Some static routes, okay? So let's go ahead and get started though. I've got, I'm also using Super Putty for this class, which is another free download. And I have all of those 3 sessions in GNS3 opened up here. Okay, so let's take a look at part of this. It said make sure all interfaces are enabled and make sure that routing exists between all neighbors. So the first thing I'm going to do is a show IP interfaces brief. And that tells us we have nothing assigned. So we've got interfaces here. Most of them are down. Interface FA00 is up. But basically, let me see if I can make this a little bit more viewable for you. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. There you go. It looks a little bit better anyway. Okay, so so we've got our interface status there. We see what we need to configure. On router 1, he is connected to, on the Ethernet interface here, he's connected to the 192.168.10.0 network, and that's enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the interface that's up here, C00, configure that one. So hang on one second and just pull this. And we'll do my IP address, 192.168.10.1, 255.255.255.0. Oh, didn't go into the interface. Thought I did. So have to go into the interface first, right? And this is what I mean by having those foundational skills with CCNA, because you need to be confident with the command line here. So put in the IP address for that first interface. Bring that up. And I'm not going to be able to ping anything yet because I've just configured one interface, right? So let's take a look at what the next thing is. We've got a serial interface over here. And if I go up here, I can view the interface labels. That'll save us some time. I don't want to have you guys just have to sit there through it. So interface labels is S10 we're going to be configuring with 192.168.50.1. So that's the next thing. So I'm going to do under interface S, what was it, 1001? 10. S10. IP address 192.168.50.1. There we go. And I always throw in that no shut command too, just to make sure that, as you can see, that interface was down. So even if it would have had an IP address on it, it wouldn't have been reachable, right? And so let's go ahead and put in the routes, since we know where we're going. Well, let's go ahead and configure the interfaces first, and then we'll add those routes. So on router 2, I've got the first interface over here. S10 is going to be the other side of that 192.168.50 network. And then we've got the 00 interface on the 192.168.30.0. So I'm going to go ahead and do the S10 first. Now I'm going to go ahead and ping the router 1 interface on this segment to make sure that we've got connectivity. So if I type in do, I can do that command, ping 192.168.50.1, and there we go. We got a reply. So that's good. Now we need to configure the second segment on this router, this one here. So 192.168.30.2, and that's going to be on interface FA00. Okay, so router 2 is done. Let's take a look at router 3. And we've got FA00 is on the 10 and FA10 is on the 30. So we're going to do global configuration mode, interface configuration mode. Now that I brought up that interface, I should be able to ping the first interface. And there we go. Now, as a little bonus question, who can tell me why this first packet was dropped when pinging that interface? Do you guys remember? That's the whole ARP thing going on. Before we knew how to communicate on that segment, we needed to discover the MAC address of router 1. Right? And so we pinged the interface, which was fine, but router 3 basically says, hey, I don't have a MAC address for 192.168.10.1. So ARP, can you get that MAC address for me? So ARP did his request, and then router 1 replied, and then the rest of those packets are successful. And so if I do that command over again, they're going to be successful every time. Right? This is again why you should have this experience coming into these labs or into this class, right? So, all right, let's take another look here. So I've got interface F00 is on 192.168.30.1. So I'm going to do int F. Or was that 10? Yeah, as you can imagine, the interface is extremely important with this stuff, right? So interface. I'm going to have to get used to this keyboard. It's not my normal one. So I'm putting the IP address on that interface. I'm going to do a no shut. And then I'm going to ping that side too. And what this is doing so far is just verifying basic connectivity between the routers, because we did the same thing here with that ARP request, and then we discovered the MAC address, then we could forward that packet. So until we have basic connectivity, we can't route, right? And so that's obviously a problem. So we've got basic connectivity going, IP addresses are enabled, so far life is good. Now, what networks can't we see? Let's take a look at this. So if I'm router 1, I know about directly connected networks by default, right? So I'm going to be aware of the 192.168.10 network and the 192.168.50 network. If we go in router 1, go back over here to router 1, I'm going to go back to the privileged exec mode, and I'm going to do a show IP route. Look at what's in my routing table. I have 2 routes in my routing table for 10 and 50, right? But what I don't know about is 30. And actually, the funny part is I could go two ways on this, right? I could go to router 3 for 30, or I could go to router 2 for 30. They both get me there. So right now I'm just going to go through router 2. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to do config T, and I'm going to do IP route, and now we got to put in the network address, right? 192.168.30.30.0, 255.255.255.0 through the 192.168.50.1. I believe router 2 was 50 on that segment. Yep. Oh, sorry, 50.2. So let's see if I can now ping an interface on that segment. So I'm trying to get to I know about the 192.168.50, and I know about the 192.168.10, but I didn't know about the 30 address. So let's go and see if we can ping the 192.168.30.1, which is router 3's 30 address, and see what happens. Can't get there. Now, let's see if we can ping router 2's 30 address, which is 30.2, and see if we can get there. Let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, so I was able to get to the 192.168.30 network, but not all of it. And here's the trick with this, right? Here's what's going on. So I went to, the goal was to get to the 192, well, the goal is full connectivity. We're not there yet, right? But I needed to get to the 192.168.30 network. Well, here's the thing. Remember, with routing, we need a route to a destination and then a route from that destination that can get back to us. It's got to be both ways, or else it won't work. So here's what happened. Here's why I could get to router 2. It's 30 interface. Router 2 I could reach, but I could only reach this interface. And the reason is because I told router 1 that this network lived behind router 2, and the only reason router 2 could make it back was because router 2 was directly connected to me. So he knew how to get back to the 192.168.50 network, right? And so that's what happened there. So in order for full routing to happen, though, we need to make sure that everybody knows about everybody else. So I need to be able to tell router 3 about the 192.168.50, and I also need to be able to tell router 2 about the 192.168.10. So let's go ahead and do those and see if we can ping all addresses. And that's going to send this router through router 1, and I can test that by pinging router 1's interface, because he's got to route back to me. And as you can see, I could ping that now just fine. So I was able to reach router 1, and let's see if I can reach router 3's. Now, why couldn't I reach router 3's address? Because he doesn't have a route back the other way. All right, so let's go ahead and get back on router 3. And yes, I could have pinged from another source, which is in a later lab. We're not going to get there yet. But let's go ahead and do the route for router 3 so he knows. So router 3, we're going to say you can get to 192.168.50.0 through router 2. And so we'll put on through router 2. Just make sure here, I don't know what's up, why I can't just remember this, but want to make sure it's right. So we're going to go through router 2, which is 192.168.30.2. Much easier with routing protocols, which is our next lab, right? So, all right, now let's see. So let's see if we can ping And you've seen right there too that you gotta use the do command in this mode, right? So let's take a look here at router 1. Just make sure we've got full connectivity. So I should be able to, router 1 is aware of 10 and the 50. He should be able to ping both addresses on the 30 network. I'm going to go ahead and ping 192.168.30.1, ping 192.168.30.2. Success, success. Router 2, same thing. Should be able to ping 10.1 and 10.2. So I'm going to go ahead and do ping 192.168.10.1. Hit my up arrow, 10.2. Success, success. And since we've seen those two routers, then the third works for sure. So that's pretty much it. We verified that we have full connectivity, all the IP addresses. Notice we did it step by step. First we put on the IP addresses and enabled the interfaces. Then we did a ping to verify basic connectivity. Then we did our routes and tested through each step. Okay, so we'll take a look closer at the next lab, which is going to review routing. But I hope you enjoyed this section and hope this was a great refresher, and we'll see you in a moment.